Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So today marks the end of another rotation of the cursed city of Sintranos, so let's talk about how far I was able to make it in this particular iteration. By now it basically goes without saying, but I always like to share it just in case anyone is unfamiliar or they're new to the channel. If you are, welcome. But I am Endgame, and so I am fully able to complete normal mode in the cursed city of Sintranos. You can see that with the completion of all the quests, and I typically complete all of the 3 lower regions of hard mode, that being Soulcross, or that being Dead Rise, Cobble Market, and Plagueholm, and then I make it as far as I possibly can into Soulcross. So I'll walk you through quickly the stages that I was able to complete, the stages that I got stuck on, and of course show you guys my Amius teams. And the main reason is to show you guys teams that work in case you might be inspired to conquer the stage on your own account. So starting things off with stage 1, we have this composition here. Notably, we have 2 stun sets, one on each of the rares here. We have a stun on the A1, a chance to stun on the A1 for Jetney the Giant here, previous fusion. Then we have a couple of epics. Fanax, super powerful for his A1, of course, and then ally attack, which helps synergize well with all of the stun sets. Stun on the A1, then of course Fanax's ability to put people into the ground. The one change I do plan to make eventually is probably to replace Ferric in the Fat with Rorik Wormbane, just because he has another ability that can add some stuns into the mix. Stage 2 I was not able to complete, but it is something that I might want to bookmark for the future because I have these 2 champions ready to go, Mountain King and Thylesia. I'm considering going for Blood Gorged, or building Blood Gorged, because he has this ability here, which is essentially a mini Warlord type ability, so it's an AoE attack, but it also puts 1 skill on cooldown. And then also Bistifis, who's probably a little bit higher in the priority because he has AoE decreased defense and block active skills, 75% chance when unbooked, and I do plan to leave him unbooked and just kind of take the chances. And then I might fill in position 5 with Lady Arash because I heard right here she has decent multipliers. Stage 3 was pretty straightforward. Attack champions here, Spirit Affinity. So a good combination of CC between the True Fears, the Freeze, and then the potential for block active skills from Cleopteryx. And then of course Sun Wukong doing the primary DPS, then Ruel the Huntmaster giving us Hex, which is a little bit more damage. Stage 4, pretty much carried by Vlad as far as CC, and then Genbo is our secondary DPS with a couple of protection champions. Pretty straightforward there. Stage 5, Iron Twins, Brimstone farming as always. So Duhanarok is keeping both of them alive, and then we just swap between the Brimstones and we just use that to DPS down the boss. Not too complicated. Stage 6 is one of the harder ones, but this team has proven successful for me in the past, and it worked once again. We have a good mix of CC between the stun potential of Hoskrul and then the provoking from Rockbreaker, but then also the freeze potential from Newt on the A1 is also handy. Obviously the AoE decrease stack is strong as well. This is the stage with like the Leo and the Mighty Uko, so it can be definitely overwhelming. DPS in Shield Guard there, who's in a lifesteal set, so he heals himself up very easily. And then Armiger is also good for turn meter control, but also the potential to block revive, which again is handy against Mighty Uko. Stage 7 was basically carried by Yakarl and Visix as far as controlling the waves, and then Skrank was doing a little bit of extra bonus damage. Lydia was helping to debuff, of course, but also kind of mitigating the torments on the last wave, and then Duhanarok is keeping everyone cleansed of all the freezes. Stage 23, basically carried by Hernding and Rhodos, and then a couple of supports to keep them alive. Barely made it in terms of the star count there. Stage 8, pretty straightforward as well. Venomage carried it with Gizmak as far as the DPS, and then a couple of supports surrounding them to get through that stage. Stage 9, we have the double revive combo of Godseeker Neri and Rected Wrath. Rected Wrath is basically tanky enough to just face tank the hits from the boss, and then if all else fails, she'd be the only one who survives. She revives Godseeker Neri. Godseeker Neri revives someone else, probably Gomlock, and then we can use Brimstone again to DPS down the boss. And then if we're able to get everyone back up alive, there is potential to do or place more debuffs at the appropriate time. Most notably between Tomb Lord and Theodore, they don't actually have to hit to apply their debuffs, which can be very solid as far as minimizing the chances to wake him up. For stage 10, we have the CC and damage from Vlad, and then we have the backup CC from Umbral Enchantress with some supports surrounding them. So pretty straightforward on that one as well. We'll come back to the ones I couldn't do. And stage 16, basically the same thing, Vlad and Umbral, and then supports around them. And then stage 25 is Narcisse, more or less the primary DPS with a bunch of supports around him, and a little bit of CC from Crowd in the Blue as well. And then lastly, we did hard mode Fire Knight here with a pretty cool team. It took me a good while to iterate to get this one to work. But we have the freezing duo of Cryon and Noldor. Then we have Arbiter to keep our turn meter filled, as well as revive people if they went down. Triple hitter from Ruella to help us get down the shield, but also placing decreased defense, weaken, and decreased speed. And then then backup decreased speed for more guard, but also the enemy max HP hits. So that was our primary form of damage, while everyone else is maintaining our control on keeping the shield down. And a side note here, I really do wish that they would change Shiramani's A1 to be more like Crowden, where it can actually place multiple freezes, but I digress. So obviously I was not able to complete every single stage in Soulcross Hard, but I think I made a reasonable amount of progress into it. For the rest of them, stage 18, I think what this team is lacking is basically a little bit more control. So I'd probably drop Rosin and put in Bistafis whenever I build him. He's most likely going to be my next champion, or my next 6-star champion. Depends on what happens once Curse City resets and who might be more important for that particular rotation. But making that substitution, we would lose the turn meter drop on a 7-turn cooldown because my Rosin's unbooked, but we have a potential just to lock them out for 2 turns with block active skills on top of the stun potential from Broodlord and the stun sets on Thylacia and Basilisk, and then a little bit of damage from Fushan. But I also might change him out. Maybe I put in Durandil, who's a more powerful DPS. We'll kind of see, play it by ear, but I think the control is the most important element. Stage 20 felt so close yet so far. I did build up to Gore. We'll talk about all the champions that I built, newly built for Curse City, but there's only a couple of them. But I built out Tagore to try and help us stay alive or keep people alive on the stage. It's a very tough one. Mainly, I'm just kind of lacking in the damage department. I have a reasonable amount of CC between the provoking from Duck the Pierced and then the stuns from Archmage Helmet, the sleeps from Allure, also the turn meter control there, but I just don't really have enough damage to kind of do anything after I do all of those things. Ultimate Gaelic is just not really cutting it, so I might have to rebuild him to be a lot stronger in his build, or just have to rethink or come up with some other idea. But for now, I kind of got stuck on that one, unfortunately. Stage 18. This one's just really hard because the first wave has the double Cupidus with the Venus, so he counterattacks every time he's hit. So if you don't stun him with the stun set or some other form, you're going to get counterattacked into oblivion. And of course, there's Spirit Affinity, which means they're a strong affinity against your Force champions, so it's going to be ridiculously hard to kill them. And even if Venus dies, they're still going to counterattack constantly, so it's just absolute agony and pain. So I was not able to get through that one. I have no clue what I would really need to do there. Maybe I wait for my Bowsmith Flannan here in a stun set to come into play. We'll see in the future. And then stage 13, I have like a pretty solid base team here, but I can't really finish it out with the damage dealers yet, at least the ones that I've seen. Open to recommendations if you guys have any. But we have Husk, who has the potential for AoE stun. We have Atchak the Wender, and has a potential for AoE freeze. And then we have Hofferes the Tusk, who can be our reviver to keep the team running, but we're missing the DPS. So I don't know. I don't know who to use for that one. And then lastly, this one definitely felt possible, but I would definitely need Delaja here 6-star in order to make it work. Essentially, we're mostly depending on Leech to heal up the damage dealers, and then Delaja has a shield and continuous heals to heal up the rest of the time. And then Spirit Host coming in clutch, rare champion from the campaign, being the cleanser for the team, albeit on a 5-turn cooldown, but it's more than enough. And then the dual DPS of Mashald, as well as Rule the Huntmaster. I find that this is a very annoying stage because there's not that many options in terms of cleansers that you can use. And then also the Ice Golem puts decreased accuracy on your team. And then whenever you attack the Nether Spider, she extends all debuffs on you, so you're like extending decreased accuracy on yourself, which makes it harder and harder to place your debuffs after the fact. So it's just something I didn't really have a perfect answer for, aside from kind of just face tanking it and healing up in between the poison explosions. But nonetheless, I think 6-starring Delaja would make this possible, but we'll have to see next time this rotation comes around, obviously after I 6-star her. And then lastly, of course, we have my Amius team, which for this rotation is this team. This is almost the same as what I ran in the previous iteration with this particular composition, but I did make one swap, which is Vault Keeper Wixwell in exchange for Mighty Uko. I normally do like to run double Reviver compositions, but this one just wasn't working like it worked the first time, and so I was trying out something a little bit different, and this is what actually ended up working. So Morgaine is our hero reduction champion. Tatura Rhymehide is to prevent us from taking the stun on Form 1, but also increase defense if we need it. Arbiter, of course, is the primary turn meter control, healer, reviver, etc. Nishak is our primary DPS by placing all the bombs, but also the bombs that the bombs turn into poisons. And basically, Vault Keeper Wixwell was in there to protect Arbiter on Form 2. So we were able to use the intercept stacks on her so that she can never be slept in Form 2. That way, she was always ready, regardless of whether or not Amius killed someone in Form 2. She was always ready to revive and boost turn meter and heal. And then, of course, we're also protected a little bit by the shield, so that helps mitigate some of the damage that some of the champions might take. So that ended up working surprisingly well, and I was a huge fan of that. My Wixwell works well is in a protection set, and so we didn't have to worry as much as well about our buffs being turned into the negative form, because his increased defense had a good chance to be protected. So next, let's talk about the champs that were freshly built for this rotation of the Cursed City. I think it's a bit of a stretch to include Skrank in that mix, but I did end up using him one of the stages. I built him just because I got him fairly recently, and I've always wanted to use him ever since he came out. But he did come in handy just to be a little bit of DPS on that one stage we showcased. But we have him built in Perception, and then 3 pieces of Supersonic, which is more of a coincidence of the gloves being like a good solid crit damage pair, the ring just kind of matching what I needed, and I just filled it in with some other piece, so a little bit of HP and some speed. 1 piece of Stone Skin for a little bit extra HP, but predominantly he's just in Perception set, and he is built for damage. Total stats are as follows: 38,000 on the HP, so fairly squishy, almost 4,400 on the attack, 244 on the speed, full crit rate 208 on the crit damage, and then 300-ish on the accuracy, which is enough to place debuffs in the Cursed City. For the Blessing, I opted for Cruelty because he has this big AoE attack that gives him a decent amount of turn meter fill, and so he can cycle back through his abilities relatively quickly, and so it can help build up these stacks of Cruelty. And as you'd expect for champions who I exclusively use in the Cursed City, he has no masteries, so don't have to worry about that. And then the second champion who I did build for that stage 20, at least the attempts, was Tagore, Ash's favorite epic champion in the game. But we have Resilience and then 2 pieces of Immortal. The Merciless is just kind of a happen to be a good stat on the ring. Obviously, we don't really need attack on him. I didn't max out any of the gear because I didn't really feel it was necessary, and it wasn't really helping the success of the run, because he would end up being the last person alive, and it's not because he had, like, you know, it's not because these weren't 16 that we weren't able to do it. It's just because everyone else was dying repeatedly, including him eventually. But I digress. So total stats on him, granted, again, we're not fully maxed out on, or 16 on all the pieces, but 60,000 on the HP, 2,400 on the defense, 231 on the speed, so pretty quick, and then 388 on the resistance. He doesn't really need accuracy in his kit, so I opted to go for resistance so that he's immune to any and all of the debuffs that the enemy waves might place on him. And then currently he doesn't have a Blessing, and then of course no masteries because he's exclusively built for the Cursed City. So yeah, that's going to do it for my progression in rotation 9 of the Cursed City. If anyone was curious in terms of progress towards Carnage, we're at 380 out of 500, so we're probably 2 to 3-ish rotations away from getting him. But yeah, I'm not that excited about getting him. I haven't really seen him do anything amazing in areas that I care about, but nonetheless, it'd be nice to have another mythical on the account. Let me know in the comment section down below how far you guys made it in this rotation of the Cursed City, and also let me know if any of my teams inspired you to try something different or build someone new for your Cursed City progression. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and if you enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.